Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. It's good to be back. I'm not going to say I told you so. I'm not going to do that. But I did. So this is what career politicians got us by not reading the bill, and then they passed it, and now look where we're at. All the way down to the state level, county levels, we don't know what to expect or what to deal with. What I'm here tonight to talk specifically about is the party that I love, the Republican Party. When I was growing up as a kid in Pittsburgh, my dad was a Democrat, Teamster guy with the Pittsburgh Press and Post-Gazette, truck driver, tough guy. Everybody's a Democrat and you don't eat. And I came to the house one day bouncing in, and he asked me, he said, "Did you register to vote?" And I said, "Sure did, Dad." I said, "You'd be proud of me." I didn't know Dad was a Democrat. He says, "What'd you register as?" It says Republican, so I could vote for Ronald Reagan. "Get out of my house, pack your stuff, get out." I said, "Dad, I'm married with a kid. I don't live here anymore." He says, "Then get off my property." So it was that detrimental. But ever since then, I have always been a registered Republican. Will always stay a registered Republican. Unfortunately, we're in a country that only recognizes the two-party system, Republicans and the Democrats. And I'm going to tell you tonight, folks, I've heard the disheartening cry of the Republicans after losing the election. And we worked so hard to win. And I'm telling you right now where our downfall was. A house divided against itself will fall every time history has proven it to us, over and over and over again. What we all have to do is come together under the core principles of the Republican Party that made us Republicans. It's good to have ideas. It's good to have your opinions. It's good to have suggestions and open conversation. It's good to have debate. It's healthy. It makes people think. But we've got the core values that made us all Republicans, and that's where we all meet at the crossroads. That's where we're all at. And the only way we're going to restore anything is by coming together. We have to be inclusive, not reclusive, and not casting people out. We've got to bring all the factions together on the core values that made us all Republicans, that made us strong Republicans. So I'm going to tell you what, folks, there's no substitute for victory. And we're going to keep dealing with losses. Do we want to end up with another House and Senate for 40 years like we did in this country after World War II and all the way through until the Republicans came and took the House back, took half the Senate back? Remember those days? We did good. The country was prospering, we were rolling, we were making things happen. But where did we go wrong? We broke up into fractions. We turned against each other. We started talking about each other instead of talking to each other. We as Republicans, it has to start somewhere. And God knows, maybe it'll become contagious. And then we can pull the party together. You know, it's been 4 years. The first time I ever spoke to this group, do you remember what I said? Until we take back our party, how do you expect to take back a nation? I'm here today to pull the stops and say it's time we start working to take our party down, to rebuild that Republican Party that was great. As Ronald Reagan had it, it was inclusive. Everybody was welcome. Everybody with ideas, everybody with dreams, everybody with visions. But you want to know something? They still stood on the same core values. That's what made us strong, because you couldn't shake the core values of the Republicans. We're not the party of bigotry. We're the party of freedom. We're not the party of exclusivity. We're the party of inclusion. Where did we go wrong? We ran races against each other instead of against them. We ran against the Ron Paul group. We ran against the Tea Party group. We ran against the Libertarian group. Why weren't we running against the Democrats? We could have stopped this if we were more united, if we would have been stronger in our stance. But the Democrats controlled us. They spun us around like little donuts. They had us right where they wanted us. They're always on the defensive, always trying to make the catch up, always trying to cover up, always trying to ask forgiveness, always trying to make an excuse of why this or why that, instead of being out there being the leaders that the Republicans have always been. We're fewer now than we were before. So we need to roll up our sleeves and get busy working and bringing people back into the Republican Party, because we're the party that has the answer that the world is looking for and waiting for. But they didn't hear that this last election. All they heard was squabbling and whining and fighting amongst ourselves. My answer is it's time to grow up, Republicans. It's time to go back to work. It's time to put the differences aside and stand on the common core values of the Republican Party that made this party great. This is the Lincoln Party, the Reagan Party, the greatest party in the world. Of all the parties that there are politically in the world, none has ever been greater or done more great things than the Republicans. Civil rights in the 60s was the Republicans. We forced it down Lyndon Johnson's throat. He had to swallow it. We're the party of freedom. We're not the racist party. We're not the bigot party. So I'm here tonight to ask you, because I know many of you are Republicans, and who's not are conservatives. Let's unite. Let's start taking back our party so that we can take back our nation. I told it to you 4 years ago. For a whole 2 years, I went all over this district telling people, we have to unite. We have to take back our party if we're going to take back a country. I'm here tonight to ask you, as I look forward to speaking to other Republican groups and Tea Party groups that are made up, basically we're Republicans. We're Republicans that got disillusioned because the party got given away under our watch. I hope you'll join me, and I hope you'll join others, and we can unite our party, because we can put a stop to everything in 4 years. We can stop this machine in 2 years. We got to take the Senate back, and we can shut them down. We shouldn't have Matt Gaetz and the Florida House arguing over which plan is better than the other plan, but they're all going to screw us up. That shouldn't be happening. Where's our state sovereignty at? We have a whole group of guys up there that have been up there for years, 16 years, 20 years, 40 years, career politicians. And what are they doing? They gave it away. They handed it on a silver platter when we had it all. We had everything we could have done with everything. We could have moved and shaken this country with prosperity. We could have brought jobs back. We were bringing jobs back. Then we had votes like CAFTA, and the jobs went to Central America. That was 12 years ago. Do you remember CAFTA? You know, if you plant a tree 12 years ago and it grows fruit, and 12 years later it's supposed to bear fruit, but you plant it in a sand pit, guess what you're going to get? No fruit. You killed the tree. We've got to start looking at getting leadership that's committed and dedicated to our core values as Republicans. Then we need to get people to serve in office that are just as dedicated, if not more dedicated, to serve under our core values. We can go out and spew rhetoric everywhere, but where's the core values at? People are going to run from you if you don't have a message. The Republicans have that message. We've always had that message. Core values. We have the answers to what they're looking for. We have the food to feed the hungry. These people are out there looking for answers. They're looking for something to save them, something to look forward to, something to bring them out of the depression that they're in, something to bring us out of the depression this nation is definitely in. It's up to us. It's up to little groups like us to become infectious and catch on and start a whirlwind fire and be on fire and be proud to say I'm a conservative Republican. Because that's the party, I got disowned by my dad over that. Until I had a granddaughter. Then Dad came around, softened up. And you know, because of the excitement that I showed my father as being a Republican, the excitement, the zeal. I worked on Pat Robertson's campaign when he ran for president in Western Pennsylvania. I worked on his campaign. And I was excited about it. I was like, wow, this is great. Got to meet Pat Robertson. But you want to know something? My dad saw that. My dad became a Republican.
Oh, man.
It was like, Dad got saved. He became a Republican.
Literally.
Yes, he did. Dad's with the Lord. He was a tough man. And he was even tough back then after he started life. And you know, because Dad got the fire, Grandma and Grandpa got the fire. It was contagious. Before I knew it, my family went from Democrat to Republican. In the heart of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is all Democrat. But you see, we have something contagious. We have something that answers their questions and their desires. We have the answers. We have the platform. We have the core principles that the world is looking for. It's up to us to deliver it to them. And that's what I'm here to ask you to help me do and to help our party do. And let's cure it. Let's fix it. Let's rebuild it. And let's go out and win the next 2 elections, because we need to. Or this country, our demise will be at hand. We can still stop this in the next 2 elections. We can still put the brakes on. And you know, people tell me all the time, when I'm a private investigator. Matt, you're familiar with private investigators, you're an attorney. You do criminal defense work, you were a prosecutor. Let me tell you something, I had a group of 10 guys sitting in a room that told me, you will never get the mandatory insurance requirement to have a private investigator's license to work in a right-to-work state. You'll never get that law repealed. I got appointed to the PIRSAC Council under John Krause. And guess what? My first 6 months as an appointee on that council, we got the mandatory insurance law repealed. Now fighting sales tax on service. Everybody scratches their head and says, what do you do? Said, not us, Department of Revenue, the Gestapo. Because it's the right thing to do. I went to Orlando, and I'm not bragging on myself, please don't take it like that, but I recently went to Orlando to talk to the Private Investigator Association about repealing the sales tax that's on our services that we have to charge our clients. And I'm very proud, flattered, and honored to say that at the end of the convention, they presented me with the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award. I didn't know what to say. I was so speechless that I would have bursted into tears if I would have even said thank you. I was that humble. And believe it or not, they have it on video where I was without words. Can you believe that, guy? Me without words. But you want to know something? It was standing on the core value that I was standing up to something that was wrong. I don't care how they explain it in the legislature or Department of Revenue or excuse it, it was wrong. Core values. We as Republicans have core values. Now we've got Republican county commissioners putting 4-cent sales tax on gasoline in Escambia County to fund the ECAT service that nobody ever rides. And they're supposed to be Republicans, and they're passing taxation. The rhinos, gay.
Agenda 21.
We could sit in this room, and we can all complain, we can all gripe about it, but how about we start putting some skin in the game, folks? I'm ready to put skin in the game. I think our country needs us to put skin in the game. We need to become inclusive and start building on those core principles and start broadening this base that Ronald Reagan dreamed of and made great, that Abraham Lincoln helped birth and made famous and fabulous for doing something that no other president was able to do. To have the hindsight to be able to recognize that under the Constitution, you could not take a man's private property. So he freed the slaves because they were private property. And he understood that. But he understood our Constitution. We need leaders that are going to not only get back to the Constitution of the United States, but Matt, you're a young guy. You're a lot younger than me. A lot better educated than me. You got a law degree. You're a doctorate of jurisprudence. You've got an opportunity, my friend, to go to Tallahassee and say, we need to start sticking by the Florida Constitution and the Florida sovereignty. So you guys are charged with protecting our Constitution and our sovereignty. And I don't take that lightly. If you're going to stick somebody, my son-in-law is just now coming back from 2 tours in Iraq and 3 tours in Afghanistan. And he's getting out of the United States Army as a sergeant after 7 years. And he told me, he says, you want to know something, Pops? Coming home is what it's fighting for is all about. Because it's still the greatest nation on earth. You should see how they live over there. It's up to us, folks. Because we're the last generation that has all the stops to put in place. Are we going to do it? Or are we going to sit back on our laurels and just complain about it? I'm here to challenge every one of us tonight, because that's our challenge. Our challenge tonight is to build the Republican Party back to the greatness that it was. To bring back those core foundational principles that made us great, that made us all come together. And until we recognize that, we're going to keep losing elections, folks. And we're going to have a one-party government. And that scares the holy hell out of me. Because that means my freedom's going to be gone, and so is yours. Thank you all very much for having me come speak. Privilege and honor. Thank you.